State your name for us.
Tanisha Dankenbring.
Can you spell your last name?
Dankenbring.
Okay. What would you like to tell me today?
Eldon and I have a child together. Things have been getting rough for the past couple of years. I believe there is a substance abuse disorder as well as alcoholism. He has anger issues. He started to threaten me the Friday before the incident, left his vehicle in my driveway to intimidate me. I was scared at the time because he said he wouldn't leave the property. He told our child that mom was going to have to call the police to have him removed. I had to go check the vehicle that morning to make sure he wasn't in it so that I could continue with my plans that day. Then Easter was that Sunday. He promises our child that he'll come over and see her, but doesn't. And then the day of the incident, I told him he needed to get the truck out of the driveway, but he's continued to threaten and tell me that I haven't seen any, violence or anything yet. After we got off the phone, I contacted his mother and said that if he asked to come to the house, that she is not to bring him. She didn't feel that my warning was enough and that I needed to stop playing into his games. And they showed up at my house. He had the neighbor help him start the vehicle. And then after the neighbor had gone into the house, that's when he approached the house and pushed his way in. He wanted the rest of his stuff that was there. Most of it had already been taken to his mother's. I do have some more stuff that I have bagged up and is ready to be taken to his house, to his mother's house by another party. After the incident, Eldon knew that I had fears of someone coming into our house in the first place. After he pushed his way in and took my phone, which I'm not the first person he's done that to. He did that to a previous person that he was in a relationship before me, but he broke her phone. I was able to get mine back, but I still had tried to call 911. His mom said she would call, but didn't. They took what items he wanted out of the freezer and out of the basement. And on his way up, he then punched through a picture of my nephew, broke the picture, broke the wall. It's been patched, but I haven't had the wall painted again yet. It's down the stairways. My daughter has seen him punch a lamp. I replaced it to try to make her think, not realize that he had broken it, but she still asks, what happened to the lamp that dad broke the day she was sick? Because I wouldn't give you money. Since I've taken some anxiety medication because I started having night terrors after it happened. And I did put security on the house, and I'm taking additional steps for security because I don't know what this man is on. I don't know what his temper is going to be from one day to the next. Thankfully, I have the PPO and I don't have to have contact with him, as well as our child at this time.
You don't have our parenting time order for him right now.
We have a date set for a referee hearing, which during the interview with the investigator, he was probably on something because he was swaying back and forth. He overdosed twice in 1 year. He's not the person I originally knew. He's not the person I had a child with. And he needs to get his shit together. You're the one doing this to yourself.
I guess just have to decide what's appropriate. You mentioned like rehabilitative measures. Of course, they're only helpful if he actually shows up for him, right?
Absolutely.
And so I don't know if he'll show up.
No,
If I put him in jail, then he can't see your child.
he can't see her now anyways because of no
And-
contact, and
He only gets rehabilitation and that's offered in the jail. You know what I mean? So I want
Absolutely.
to hear from you what you want. or
he
what
needs
you-
help. He needs help. He's either gonna end up dead and he'll never see his child then.
What's his drug of choice?
He hid it from me. The warrant that he was apparently picked up was for operating my vehicle under a controlled substance, which was cocaine. I only knew him to do marijuana. I don't know if he's doing more. The second overdose, there was no accident involved, but he did $27,000 worth of damage to my car. In that accident, I was without a car forever, and then he put a bunch of miles on it once we got it back. He states that in that accident that his marijuana was laced, but there was no marijuana in the test that the courts did or that the hospital did. I don't know if there was, I have the police report from that accident.
And he gave you the lab report?
I also, when we were together, I was taking care of his medical stuff. I had access to his Sparrow account, and that's how I finally found out about the overdose in Myers parking lot, and they suspected heroin. But because that was in his vehicle, which we also co-own, and is probably going to be repossessed because he's not paying on that either, or our child. I was able to see that documentation. He needs help. And he's not gonna get it on his own. You're not even showing up to probation requirements. I don't know if he told the friend of the court he's working. I don't know. He also told him that's probably not gonna last under his breath. So he needs something more than what he's been getting. He knows how to get around probation. He's been on it before. He knows that he can drink to a certain point, and then he can go test later. I know this because we lived together when you were on probation for the other thing.
Mr. Raleigh, on behalf of your client?
I think Mr. Warren does admittedly have substance abuse issues. He is under supervision through Judge Simmons' court for a case involving operating under the influence of controlled substances.
He doesn't admit his substance abuse issues. His questionnaire, he says he smokes daily marijuana, not since January of 2022. And he's twice been prescribed opiates, which he hasn't had since March of 2020. Sure doesn't sound like he thinks he has a problem.
I can tell you after speaking with Mr. Warren today, I think he is interested in engaging with some services and getting some help with these issues. And I think he is at a point where he realizes that something needs to change immediately.
Okay. Mr. Wood, what would you like to say before sentencing?
There's a lot of things that I would like to rebuttal on things that she was stating about me. If that's possible, I would like to do that.
Mr. Raleigh, you probably want to talk to your client about doing that in just a minute.
Okay.
Ms. Dinkenberg, you can just have a seat.
Okay, I apologize, Your Honor. I've never once had any violent thoughts, anything like that. I've never even imagined that I would do any violent act in front of my daughter, especially, or even raise my hand towards my baby's mother. You know what I mean? I hardly even spoke with her that much throughout the pandemic. I worked for FedEx. Okay, when I got home, first of all, I worked like 80, 90-hour weeks, and I would get home and she would already be sleeping. So I would leave because I was, I'm a night owl. I'm a night owl anyway, so I had a hard time sleeping. I've never had any type of addiction. I'm very, very strong-willed when it comes to, like, there's no drug that can overpower my mentality. I'm not a drinker. As far as, my previous probation that I was on, it was unsupervised. I didn't have to report. All I had to do was call and receive a number to go to Adam, and I went every day and I complied. I didn't have any violation on that at all. And with this one, it's been very confusing because I have the one date, the one probation that I'm on now, and then having these address changes and stuff have been really awkward for me, and I've been receiving the mail a little late. Some of the mail still goes to her house and comes to my mom's house, and I went to I've had another drug and alcohol assessment. That would be the second one that I had. That was supposed to be sent over to Miss Bayless, who's my probation officer. I haven't been doing any drugs whatsoever. I have not drank. I don't even remember the last time I've had a drink. And as far as any of the breathalyzers that I did in the first one, it was all EKG stuff. So it could report it could track it for the last 72 hours. So it'd be impossible to just avoid or to time a breathalyzer. But as far as, this probationary that we're going through, I didn't, I was totally off track with that. And I apologize. I didn't mean to not just show up for it. You know what I mean? It's hard. I got two different things I'm going for, and so I was just trying to balance it out. And I wanted to see, I was going to see Miss Bayless actually yesterday because I was aware of this court date. And I was gonna go in there and have her. I was gonna do my test and all that and show her that I've been doing well and clean. Hopefully, she was gonna wipe away the previous, the meetings that I had failed to show up for. I was not aware of this one at all.
You know what? So much of what you just said just shows how little you actually know about what you're supposed to be doing because you've been speaking. And so EKG tests are not breath tests, they're urine tests. So none of that made sense. Ms. Bayless doesn't have discretion to wipe away your probation violations, and she doesn't have the capacity to give you a test. So none of that makes any sense at all.
Man.
So you weren't doing anything for your probation. You didn't go to your testing. Is that what you're telling me?
I've never been offered. She never even said anything about a test. I haven't even.
You're on probation for OWI, and you're telling me that you had no idea you were supposed to be testing.
I was never told a testing date about anything.
Did you ever show up to sign your orders and get your referrals?
I showed up the first time that I spoke with her, and I haven't seen her after that. That was for my first sentencing, not for this one. I haven't seen her for this one yet. No.
I'm not talking about this one. I'm talking about the other one because I'm trying to assess your capacity to follow through and do what you're supposed to.
The last thing I want to do is go against the court orders. It's the last thing of my intention. I've been working really hard. I've been struggling really with not being able to see my daughter. I've seen my daughter. I haven't even talked to my daughter in 4 months. That is the most painful thing I've ever endured. I've never even been through any of this stuff. I'm no criminal. I have no past history of any criminal acts, of any violence or anything, Your Honor. That is the furthest of my goal is to make anyone live in fear. For one, it's just something I'm not used to, and something I'm no criminal. So I don't know how to really react to a lot of this stuff because it's all new to me. I've never been charged with any type of criminal act other than a driving infraction. And
5-year history, it spans like 4 states.
that's all driving,
Some,
most of it.
maybe most of it, but not all of it. So, choose your words wisely. I mean, you went to jail for some offense. They actually gave you suspended jail for failure to pay tax, which is sort of interesting, but that's out of South Dakota. Then I have South Carolina, where you get charged with soliciting legal business unlawful, whatever that is. Then I get Utah.
That was all in my business that I was doing. I was selling
Utah,
magazines.
disorderly conduct and doing a business without a license. So that's 3 states. Then we get to Florida, that's 4 states. In Florida, you have the driving offenses.
And those all tied into each other.
Driving.
They're all tied into
Driving
each other.
habitual. Wherein you got probation for 18 months for driving. That's interesting. So Michigan's like your 5th state.
They're all tied in together though. From 19 to 33 years old, I drove for a sales company. We drove all around the country. I was in 48 states, and a lot of those states required my driving. And when I received tickets and my license would be suspended, they still required me to drive. And then we would leave the state and I would never be able to go back. That's simply how it was, I'd get a ticket and then we'd leave the state the next day. So that would leave me with a charge that I was under the impression that my boss was paying off these outstanding tickets with my money.
But the problem is that they weren't tickets, they were misdemeanors.
Well, the fines and costs is what I meant. I was under the impression we were being taken care of. Until this day, I followed through with my Florida ones, which was the major. That was the habitual charge for driving while license revoked, and I took care of that, as you can see with my probation on that. Once I became habitual, I was a year not being able to drive at all. And then I became, I got under the hardship. And during that time right there, I received no tickets, no anything. So I complied very well when it came to that,
Oh, hold on. The recording just stopped, so she needs to fix it. Okay. All right, back on the record in State versus Aldon, or 2301-569 apply. Mr. Coltwriter, Mr. Raleigh, and Mr. Ward are still here. Mr. Ward, I think I've heard enough from you today, and I've made my decision on sentence. Firstly, based on what I've heard here today, the violent nature of the offense, and my concerns that you don't understand about the need for your compliance with court orders, you're going to be placed on probation for 18 months, but it's going to start with 90 days in jail for credit for 1 day already served. During your 18 months of probation, you are to meet with your probation agent as directed. Do not leave the state without permission. Do not commit any crimes. You are to have no contact with Ms. Dakenbring unless, or Dankenbring, without order from the court. No assault or threatening behavior, no use or possession of alcohol, marijuana, or controlled substances without a prescription. You are to submit to random testing as directed by your probation agent and pay for those tests. You're not to attend bars or nightclubs during probation unless you get a job at a bar or nightclub, in which case you can talk to your PO about that. We'll allow you to work in a bar or nightclub, but you can't be there when you're off shift and you can't be using while you're there. You're to complete the domestic violence batterers intervention program and a substance abuse assessment and follow recommendations. Since you indicated you've already completed a substance abuse assessment recently, you can provide that to your probation agent and follow the recommendations of that assessment in lieu of paying for an additional assessment. You are to maintain some employment during probation. You're not to purchase or possess firearms, ammunition, or weapons of any kind during the term of your probation. You should know I gave you the 90 days jail up front, but this is a 365-day case. So if you refuse to follow through on your probationary terms, I'll give you the rest of the jail. Your fines are $200, your crime victim rights fee is $75, your state member costs are $50. Probation oversight fees are $30 per month for 18 months, that's $540, which means you currently owe $865. We've scheduled a restitution hearing to determine the full extent of restitution that will be added to this balance for September 5th at 11 a.m. Since you will be in custody on that day, we'll make sure that you're brought over and we will commence with the restitution hearing at that time. Hopefully the lawyers will have done legal research so that they can speak on what the law allows as far as that restitution that's requested. Since I gave you jail, you do have the right to appeal. If you'd like to appeal and you need a public defender to assist, you need to make your application for a public defender within 14 days. Any